Back here at the Northland Sports page, live at Hoops Brewing as part of Hoopla 7. Again, it goes all day. We're broadcasting until 1. This show till noon. Monster Weekend kickoff, noon to 1. Then, as Dave Hoops alluded to, live music most of the day. Harbor Monsters watch party. I think it's going to be a party at the deck tonight, too.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right. You know, we were talking about the Harbor Monsters game last week, and then the first game, right? And there was a full month between those two games, and yet the crowd still showed up.
I was going to say, Duluth didn't miss a beat, and I'll tell you what.
It's so easy to forget about a new team that's only played once, and we didn't.
Speaking of not missing a beat, we're just going to call a little bit of an audible here on the Northland Sports page. We're going to do buy or sell right now, guys, because I just got a text from Dave Reyelts that he's umping in a summer baseball tournament and it went a little long, and he'll be here in about 15 minutes. So I have no problem with that. We'll just bump him to 25 after, and we'll do buy or sell right now. Speaking of buy or sell, we're at one of our great sponsors in Hoops Brewing. We got to give more love to our sponsors. We want you to buy everything that they're selling, because without them, we don't have a show.
Absolutely. And let's start with Assisted Living Locators. That's www.assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth. You know, recently we've had to do some of this with our parents, and that's just not something we know anything about, right?
And it's not our parents, by the way. We are not related. We just think alike.
Right. But we don't. It's not something that you need to know anything about until you need to know it about.
Right.
So
you don't know what you don't know.
Contact the professionals at assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth. Kraus Heating and Cooling, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations in Two Harbors and in Proctor, on London Road, Blackwater right downtown, and Tavern on the Hill, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Arola Architecture Studio, the OG, and of course, our sponsor, who is currently sitting across the
most hospitable today.
Hospitable, right across the table, Hoops Brewing.
Hoops Brewing is where we are, and it's where you should be all day today. Again, we're broadcasting live here on the Fan until 1. Northland Sports page 10 to noon. Monster Weekend kickoff from noon to 1. Should be fun there as well. We'll get to know owner Brent Labrie. We'll talk to a pair of Wenzels. Both Terrence and Kayla will be here. James Ness is here, so technically the Harbor Monsters are already represented. He's got the garb going, shirt and hat. He's ready for tonight. It's going to be a fun one. And then, of course, we can't do a show without having Tony O'Neill. He is a great interview every time he talks to us.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. Again, you know, we talk about coaches that people say, I'd run through a wall for that guy, like J.J. McCarthy said. Every time you hear Tony talk, you think to yourself, I'd run through a wall for that guy.
Absolutely. And one of the things I did do this week was run to his restaurant, and the food is delicious as well. So I know they're not a sponsor, but unnecessary plug, I'm going to go ahead and do it. Jamrock Cultural Restaurant was tremendous this week.
Was that one of those during the broadcast sales meetings right there?
It was an on-air production meeting, and Laverne is here, and Laverne and I went together. So contrary to popular belief, we're not dating, but we had a good time this week. My wife was out of town, and she made sure I was well fed. Nothing wrong with that. Let the rumors begin. Let them sweat a little. Jay's here. I promise they're fine. Speaking of being fine, buy or sell is always a fine segment here on the Northland Sports page. Here's how it works. I'm going to give a statement for each of the 4 major sports leagues: NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL. If you guys agree, because by the way, I'll say you guys because Dave Hoops, he knew about the audible, so he stuck around as well. If you guys agree, you're going to say buy, and you're going to tell me why. If you completely disagree, you are going to say sell, and you tell me why. Now, Dave Cook, normally you determine the order in which we play. Now we've got 2 Daves playing. Do you want to defer?
Absolutely. 100% always defer to the sponsor.
All right, so Dave Hoops, your responsibility will be twofold. You're piping hot takes that are easy to come by for you, but your responsibility is also to determine the order in which we play. So first up, between the NBA, NFL, NHL, or MLB, what would you like?
Well, let's go in draft order, so let's go NBA.
All right, so the NBA. The Minnesota Timberwolves extended Chris Finch for 4 more years. We talked about the presidential debate early on.
4 more
The Chris
years.
Finch was the 4 more years I could get behind, but I digress. So buy or sell this. That was the biggest no-brainer that the Timberwolves executed.
Buy.
Okay, we're going to let the sponsor go first.
Oh, yeah,
though.
sorry.
No, I agree. It, you know, and I like the term 4 years. I think these 3 to 4 year things, contracts are better. Although for coaches, they just end up firing them anyway. But no, I think that the Wolves have got a really nice 3 or 4 year window here. We all wonder if Cat's going to be here or not, and that's a different conversation.
Right.
But I'm buying
It's a luxury
that.
tax conversation.
I think he's a great coach, and I think the guys really like him, and they really respond to him.
All right, so Dave Cook, you let the cat out of the bag with your hesitant buy, and now you get to expand on that.
I'm a little wishy-washy on that.
I knew that. We've met.
I think that Finch is probably, I mean, You can make the argument he's the best coach I've ever had. You can make the argument. I don't know if it's true, but
you could.
He's in the conversation.
It feels in poor taste. If Flip was still living, I think people do.
That's because
with Flip passed away, it feels like it's in poor taste.
But the thing is as Dave said, he's got a young team bought into what he's doing. He's got coaches that are very talented that want to stay with him. Like that combination is rare. I mean, obviously we just said there's 2 coaches in Minnesota history and the Timberwolves history that you can say are at that level, and everybody else we've seen the problem.
Right.
So I think it's a buy.
Going down in the field of battle, that just made him stronger. Everybody loves that Conley took him out.
I agree. So Conley technically,
it wasn't his fault.
Conley technically took him out, but hashtag Devin Booker on that one.
Yeah.
So just to be contrarian, I'm going to sell. And it's not because I have any disdain or even dislike for Chris Finch. In fact, I think he's tremendous. I think if you listen to the press conferences with Kat and Ant of, why is this team so successful? Why were we able to do this, this, and this? So many answers are Finchy. They like him. They play for him. He fits. The only reason I'm selling my own statement is because I did say the biggest no-brainer that the Timberwolves could do. It's slightly above him. It's Tim Connelly. It's the architect of this franchise getting where it's going.
Yep.
Because we're all sitting here salivating. You guys were talking about it during the commercial break of how the Timberwolves, who really weren't supposed to be really involved in the NBA draft earlier this week. I mean, you're picking 27th, but what kind of impact player are you going to get at that point? Well, lo and behold, I mentioned being at Tony O'Neill's restaurant earlier this week. My phone went off with an alert a lot quicker than I thought because all of a sudden the Timberwolves got the proverbial 8th best player in the draft. This is Tim Connelly doing Tim Connelly things. Now, I will argue that the NBA probably shouldn't allow this, that you can deal draft picks that right now are age 12 because they're 2030 and 2031 picks to obtain them. But the biggest no-brainer for me is keeping your architect who, as we said earlier, won a title in Denver, keeping him in your front office.
Bravo. That's good, Brian. And I did hear, Royce said here earlier in the week that Tim Connelly is as good as he's ever seen him working in the shadows. Well, his signature, right, his contractor came out of the shadows. So that's like, it still holds true. So yeah, Connelly's the one, and we got him extended and nobody really even noticed.
All right. So we've got one down. You've got 3 more leagues to pick from.
NHL.
All right. So the NHL, you said with one of the things I talked about earlier, well, that's a typical Minnesota attitude. So this buy or sell is going to feature it as well because we don't tend to have buyers or sellers remorse. We just have flat out jealousy. And now that it's happening in hockey with a market that doesn't seem like it should have it, I think this is a worthy topic. Buy or sell that is a resident of Minnesota, it bothers you that the state of Florida is a staple in the Stanley Cup Finals and a team from Minnesota can't get there.
I have to sell because I've gone to so much warm weather hockey.
Because he's a Sharks fan and doesn't care. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Pretty much. And Carolina, I've been to a lot, but I've been to Tampa games in Tampa because we all go to Florida,
awesome.
During the breaks. And, I don't, a lot of Northerners don't think that warm weather hockey should even exist. So I don't like the fact that Minnesota isn't here. I don't like the fact that there was no team here for 10 years, but I got the Sharks off of the North Star, so I've always had a team to root for. I feel really bad for people in Minnesota. I don't like their complaining. I really think that they deserve a championship, though. So
You're gonna sell.
I'm gonna calmly, slightly sell.
You're gonna sell on clearance. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you.
I think that the fact that they're winning in Florida and frankly Dallas has something to do with maybe not the megastars, but that next level of player without having any, income tax. Their money goes further.
Right.
And so it's a little easier for those teams not to have the superstars can be everywhere, but that next group of grinders that you need, I think that helps a little bit. So maybe there's some jealousy involved because that's not something anybody can do anything about. But it really is a shame that it's not just that they won a championship, but the Stanley Cup resides in Florida right now, right? For the last,
it might be in the ocean. If you see what players have done day to day, who knows where the actual cup is right now? But
right.
Go ahead.
So it's the fact that it's just resided down there that's getting a little tiresome.
I agree.
All right, so that was a great take, but I've got to go presidential debate on you, sir. You've got 80 more seconds. The question was, do you buy or sell? You didn't say either one.
I guess I have to buy on that. I guess I have to buy.
All right. I'm going to sell.
I have to bite.
I'm going to buy. All right. My Trump impression sucks. My Biden one is even worse, but I could just mumble for a while, I guess. I'm going to sell because I just don't think it registers all that much. Now, there are memes out there that, Florida's the new state of hockey and it's supposed to be a dig at Minnesota. But there's no rivalry with those Florida teams. I think it would be different if the Dallas Stars had won it again. I think there would be some folks that would be more upset by that. I do think, and this is a reach, I think we'll be more upset if the Columbus Blue Jackets win it before we do because you came in the league at the same time. But if you really want to be upset as a Minnesota fan over something, I'll give you two. I am upset that Bedard won it and Faber didn't. That one got to me way more than the Panthers winning the Stanley Cup. And I think I was more upset in the 90s when Florida had a team and Minnesota didn't. I didn't care if they won or not. Just like you said, Dave Hoops, the fact that their team existed and ours didn't. Because it's not as though the Florida Panthers came from the abyss and won. It wasn't a rags to riches story. It's a little bit like, as a Vikings fan, I will be very upset if the Detroit Lions, who have been the laughingstock of the league for most of my life, get a Lombardi trophy before my favorite team does. But the Florida Panthers, that's not the same story. Does that make sense?
That's a great take on it. And, and these teams, they've got fan bases even though it's Florida and nobody cares. The Tampa is a great environment and their fans show up. And I had a lot of fun when I went to a couple games down there.
All right, so we're having fun on Buy or Sell. 2 down, 2 to go. You've got MLB and NFL to choose from.
Oh, sure, you help him along.
Well, he gives good money to this show. You take good money from this show.
Let's do football and then end with the season we're in.
All right. So the NFL was tough. I'll be honest, guys. Normally the buy or sell topics come to me rather quickly. But Dave Cook, you and I have talked about, we've rattled Paul Allen's cage a little bit less recently. We've talked to Vency a little bit less recently. I haven't texted Chad Greenway in weeks because we've said, this is the time of year where football just kind of, it's always king, we get it, but it simmers down a little bit. So news was hard to come by. So I prefaced all of that by saying, pardon my reach here on this buy or sell. Because the biggest NFL topic this week was the lawsuit with the Sunday ticket. So buy or sell this. As a Minnesota resident, you ever even had the urge, or did you have the Sunday ticket?
I'm selling because I used to have the Sunday ticket for free when I lived in San Francisco, and I would watch the Vikings. Now, to your point, they're on here. The Vikings are on here. But thanks to the NFL, 5 out of 7 days a week we have football,
yes.
And we have 3 on Sundays, sometimes 4. We don't need it.
I want to interject super fast because during one of the commercial breaks, you joked with me and you said, I love how similar you and I are. This is going to be another one of those instances. Please go ahead.
No, that's all I have to say. I don't think it's necessary, and I think they really botched it with the YouTube, and not everybody understands it, and this and that, and overcharging for it. I'm a DirecTV guy, and I have been for 25 years because they're the best sports, but they were gouging people. So, no, I'm out. So.
All right, fair enough. A guy who doesn't watch a lot of games on TV, I got to get your take on this.
Yeah.
And it can't be, what is the Sunday ticket?
Well, that wasn't...
Who's playing? What ticket do I have?
It wasn't quite that simple, but...
Is it general admission?
All I know is that when we looked into the ticket and you couldn't watch the Vikings, it seemed completely worthless for me. So, I'm gonna sell that I care. But I'm going to say that it's good that the NFL is having a little comeuppance over some arrogance that it permeates the NFL. Now they get away with it, over and over and over again. It's kind of nice that they're having a little bit of a, hey, you screwed this up.
I agree with all of you, and just to be contrarian, I'm going to buy, but I'm going to do it to be snarky. Because the question also was, did you ever have the urge to have the Sunday ticket? Yes, right now, because all of them are supposedly getting a fat check down the road. I like money, judge me accordingly. But that would be the only time, because otherwise I'm completely with Dave Hoops. There are enough ways that you can see enough highlights or enough portions of your favorite team's games where I don't know why you would need the Sunday ticket. Or if you have a favorite team, and I think the NFL has more of the worship level fans than any other sport, if you have a favorite team, you're probably glued to their game anyway. There might be a half dozen others going on at the same time. I don't think you're working your remote to the point where there's smoke coming out of it because you're glued to your favorite team. I never needed the Sunday ticket, but big part of it too is I always lived in the market of my favorite team.
Right, and just quickly interject, this is a really, really cool thing. So it was with DirecTV always.
Right.
And for a long time they gave it to me for different reasons, but when YouTube took it, DirecTV kept the Red Zone. And if you know what that is,
the Red Zone,
greatest
it's
channel
fantastic
on TV. And it's free.
Yes.
So there you go.
Thank you for saying that, because otherwise the number one reason for the Sunday ticket was fantasy football players. That's what the Red Zone channel's for.
And it's perfect. I mean, you can watch all the games at once, every scoring play.
Dave Cook, I think I've just figured out what I'm going to be when I grow up. Dave Hoops. Because we have the same thoughts on everything. All right, we've got Major League Baseball left. So buy or sell this. The Minnesota Twins are now over halfway through their season. I know people view the All-Star break as that split point, but we can do math, and they're over halfway right now. So just make your prediction. Buy or sell that the Twins will be a postseason team.
Oh, buy.
Oh, now he's in sync all of a sudden. Buy. Go
well,
ahead.
Here's
you guys
the thing.
have said you've been in sync all day.
Yes.
You guys.
Oh, well done.
You know, you're already listening to them out there that they're not paying attention to the Twins. They have a better record than they did last year.
That's
the
the
only
biggest
reason that, Cleveland has started out really hot. You got to give them credit. We can stay. We just stay within range. Today we're in the wild card.
Yes.
Buy.
We're trending 90 games.
If there's anybody selling this, I don't want you on the air with me. No, I'm kidding.
Anybody selling this is truthfully not paying attention. Go ahead.
No, I think that you have to look at the Twins to this point, and it's been injuries and inconsistencies and pitchers that are good and then not good. You know, Paddock sometimes looks like the guy and sometimes looks like a guy. And we're starting to get some consistency and some health. You know, Kirilloff started out great guns, and now he's struggling even in the minors. We got guys in the minors ready to come up. I think that you need to look at the whole picture, and then you can go ahead and extrapolate a little bit going forward. Yeah, this team is dangerous.
I agree, because this is going to be all of a sudden that I'm more like this Dave instead of this Dave, although both of you are pretty much cut from the same cloth in your takes here. I agree. I'll buy that they're going to be a postseason team, not without their own issues, but I think I'm more proud of the fact that they've withstood a number of issues early. I mean, they got bit with an injury bug relatively quickly. They were able to withstand that. I still wish Brock Stewart would come out of the witness protection program, because the biggest problem is the bridge guys in the bullpen. Starting pitching would be right behind it, but I feel like they've found some youthful arms that could be an answer. Simeon Woods Richardson being one. You hope that Fest does another. I don't think we know anything off that first start, because you should be able to pitch in a rocking chair when you're up 11-0 right off the top. And then he had one bad inning, but as I told you, it was death by paper cut. It wasn't as though anybody hammered the baseball on him. It's just, I think also the way their schedule plays out. Everybody's waiting for Cleveland to go through the gauntlet and come back to earth. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to win the division, because Cleveland may already be too far away from them. But I do think a wild card's realistic, because it seems like, schedule-wise, the Twins have already gone through that gauntlet.
Yeah, no, I concur. And they went through the gauntlet hurt. I mean, at the end of the day, for me, that's the big difference maker here. You know, Correa was down a little bit. Royce has been gone most of the season. Byron is in and out. He's played very well. When he's been in, we had Margot playing like a slow pitch softball guy.
Still does.
Right.
Man, he would make me look good in right field.
And so there's so many things that aren't clicking, and this team is still on pace to win 90.
Right.
Like if some of those things just fall into place, or if they're to make a trade and get a bopper someplace and sit in the 4-hole, all of a sudden that team is the only team that'll want to play him is the Yankees.
I'm going to give you a bonus buy or sell, because it is baseball season. We're going to talk to a guy who's coming to us from a baseball tournament in just about a minute. Buy or sell, Rocco gets enough credit.
Buy. I think he gets plenty of credit.
Buy. I don't think he gets plenty of credit, but I think people like him, and he's a popular manager, and the only bitching is about how he handles his pitching as far as innings. I think Rocco, plus he's got an awesome beard. He's great. Well,
I'm going to sell, because I think squeaky wheel gets the grease. I think you're right about the stuff that people complain about, but those are the people you hear or read. You don't hear or read, man, Rocco Baldelli's record is pretty good. Rocco Baldelli's got this, and this going. Rocco Baldelli has nursed them through injuries. It's all about the poor decisions Rocco Baldelli has made. I'm a Rocco fan, and I'm guilty of accusing him of one last night. I said, I'm not a crucify Rocco after every loss kind of guy, but they weren't serious about winning last night when you let Vasquez hit in the 10th inning.
Did you listen to his post game?
I was too angry by that.
It was like sunshine and rainbows and unicorns.
Is that good or bad? Because
Sometimes.
There's part of me that wants to hear somebody go, God, we had that and we let it go. The Denny Green, we had him and we let him off the hook. But at the same time, it's not 16 games, it's 162. You can't be a roller coaster of emotions every night.
No, agreed, but feel free once in a while to show heartbeat. I think that Dave's right about that, and your example of Denny was good. If Denny would have come out every single game and said that, it would have gotten old.
Right.
But the fact that
he said real fast.
The fact that he said what we wanted to say at that time, Like, it's okay to say, yeah, I screwed up the Vasquez thing last night. I got an all-star catcher sitting behind him. Let him swing.
All right, so we are the Northland Sports Page. We are live at Hoops Brewing. It's Brian, Dave, and Dave. I feel like adding another Dave. Dave Reyelts is next. Stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back on the Northland Sports Page. It's Brian Prudhomme. It's Dave Cook. Thank you to Dave Hoops for having us here today. And for being on a segment ago. Dave Cook, I said you're most comfortable with plural Daves. We've done it again.
Yeah, so it's easy for me.
Yes.
Right? That way you don't forget your own name. Right. Well, and I don't forget anybody's name. Right? I'm good. You can say who's next. I'll say Dave, and you'll be like, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, Dave.
Who says you don't pay attention to the show? Thankfully, we have a show thanks to our great sponsors. Before we get to Dave Reyelts, let's give our sponsors a little bit of love as well.
Yes, please. Let's start with Arola Architecture Studio, the OG, the original of our sponsors. He's the guy that's got us through all the tough times, and we've been fortunate enough to be here now 7 years. Hoops Brewing, where we're sitting right now. Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kraus Heating and Cooling, Assisted Living Locators, www.assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth, and Blackwoods. That's Tavern on the Hill. That's Blackwater right downtown. That's London Road. That's location in Two Harbors.
It's all the places we frequent, basically.
And you know who else has a Blackwoods location? Proctor.
They do.
And the one guy I know that represents Proctor as much as anybody is the guy sitting across from you. See how I timed that for you?
That's called a segue.
Yes,
look at you.
There you go.
7 years with him, and he's starting to catch on. Absolutely.
Once every 7 years,
Once
Dave.
every 7 years.
Yep.
So guys, what we normally do when we get it is give some listener feedback. And I touted your appearance earlier today. And I'm not going to name who said this. I'll give you a little bit of his name. I'm going to say Steve in Duluth had the following to offer us. Dave Reyelts is the best. He was running a baseball tournament and set up all the high school hockey this past week and has grown the Proctor Summerfest Hockey Weekend to one of the most sought-after events of the summer hockey, period. Thank goodness for guys like Dave Reyelts in our community and all that he does.
Bravo.
Thank you. I think I know who that was.
I think you do, too.
He may have something to do with Duluth East Hockey.
I was going to say, Steve in Duluth, when it comes out of my mouth, doesn't have a ton of mystery to it.
No. No, I appreciate that. It's very kind of him to say that.
I think the moral of that story, Mr. Dave Reyelts, is you've been busy. Thanks for making the time for us. Tell us what's going on.
Well, like Steve said, we had some high school scrimmages with Cloquet and East. Actually, Moose Lake came in Tuesday and scrimmaged the Proctor Ales, and then Cloquet and East came up with their varsity and JV, or a semblance of what looks like a varsity and JV, and had some scrimmages yesterday. And then we're hosting the 10th annual Proctor Baseball Classic in Proctor this weekend. Supposed to start yesterday, but Mother Nature was not.
She had other ideas,
She had different plans, but a lot of work went in from a lot of great volunteers up there, and we were up and running at 7 a.m. this morning, still running.
I know because of all that you're doing, you were a little bit late in getting here, so we bumped you down a segment. Last night, you and I were texting late. I gave you the lineup, and you said you're putting two class of 1992 Trojans in the same hour. Now you guys kind of doubled down. How do you feel about going back to back? He's on deck as you're here now.
Well, I know for one that, I'm pretty social, but I'm not nearly the eloquent speaker that
I think Dave Cook and I get to judge that. We'll compare the segments.
Fair enough.
They will be recorded without question.
Yeah, we've gone back to back before because we've been on track relays together.
Nice. Who was the anchor?
In the medley, it was Dave.
So Don Ness is pointing at Dave Reyelts. All right.
Yeah. Well, we when we had our most success, it was in the medley relay. I just ran the longer distance. It had nothing to do with being the fastest.
So a little bit of role reversal today, but I want to start with kind of what you just said, because when I approached you about, hey, why don't you come down to Hoops? We'll have you on the show. My vibe was it's NHL Draft Weekend. You could be, you are a very proud father for obvious reasons, but that pride could go up a few notches if you have an NHL draftee on your hands by the end of the weekend. But your response to me was, great, I'll do that, but I don't want to just talk about that or my boys. And you gave me a litany of things going on in the community. I love how community-based you are, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very proud of, where we live. And, when the boys were young, we talked about, obviously there were some things in Proctor that I don't want to say needed to be fixed, but there had been a lot of pride in that community for a long time, and we were kind of on a downslide a little bit, and I wanted to help make it a better place, and along with a lot of other people. Like, I can't take credit for, a lot of people put a lot of time in, good friends of mine. It's been a passion of mine to see Proctor be successful. And the other thing is there were some things going on in Proctor that maybe people didn't know about, so I'll promote those things as well. But, really proud of our community and the things we've done. I talked about the Proctor Proctor Baseball Classic going on. It's the 10th year. We started out the first year. Scott McLeod, who's a Proctor native, and I put it together just trying to create an opportunity for kids to play baseball. We had 12 teams over 2 divisions. We have 56 teams over 6 divisions this weekend, 10 years later, playing in places like Twig and Pike Lake and Proctor. And actually Lake Park today. Thank you to the 709 and Lake Park Baseball Associations for helping us out because we needed a field today. Pike Lake was still a little wet, but and then Steve Patosha mentions the Summerfest, which is a 16-team summer hockey tournament we've got going, and there's a lot of people that put a lot of time into that. But and then beyond that, just the success of some of the kids that we've had, some of the athletes and opportunities. And there were kids before this group of kids like a Jake Malik who played at North Dakota State, was a Summit League tournament MVP the year they went to the national tournament in Stanford that kind of led the way. But when my boys were growing up and looking up to guys like Jake Malik, he also led them to a state tournament football as a quarterback. When they were looking up to him, I told them that's who you want to be like. When you're his age, you want kids to look at you the same way. And to my boys' credit, I think they've done a good job of that, along with a lot of other talented athletes, that we were talking about.
So I do love your ability to shine the spotlight on anybody who deserves it, but there still is the topic that AJ deserves it right now too. I don't want to ask the cliche question that many reporters would, and I cringe when they do, because the easy question would be, did you ever believe that you'd be sitting on NHL Draft Weekend wondering if your kid's name is going to be called?
You just asked it anyway.
It sets you up for I'm getting there. I'm Dan Barreroing this. I'm Brian. I like to do lengthy things before I ask questions. I didn't know if Dave Cook and I knew each other, but...
Just Matt, right?
Right. So what I wasn't going to say is, did you ever think that you would be on NHL Draft Weekend waiting for your kid's name to be called? Because it sets you up for a bad answer. If you go, no, I thought the kid was, you should have seen him when he was 6. He was terrible. I can't believe we're here. So I think it's a terrible question. So I want to rephrase it and turn it into hopefully an AJ compliment fest. When did you know he's got something beyond your run-of-the-mill hockey player, goaltender, what have you? When did you see that proverbial next level? Because yes, you're a dad, but yes, you're a coach. Easy to see that kind of stuff.
So, see,
it wasn't a bad question.
Obviously, to answer your first question, no, because I know how it works. I know how the pyramid gets so small, and 1% of 1%, get to play, and 2% of whatever get this opportunity. So no, I didn't expect that. And that's not what sports are to me. You play sports to learn about adversity. You play sports to learn about sportsmanship. You play sports to learn how to be a good teammate, be a good person, and it keeps you out of trouble, right? That was the goal when they were young, not, hey, my kids are going to make it to the NHL, right? You don't think that, and obviously
we know some people.
I was going to say there's some parents out there that do.
Fair, but that's not. I'm realistic and having coached sports for a long time at a lot of different levels. I understand that. So the answer, fair or unfair to that first question was no. I never expected.
Well, I didn't want to phrase it, but you were eloquent about it. Well done.
It wasn't the goal, but I will say. Obviously, there's been some. I've noticed athleticism since he was young, and I had people, whether it was picking up a golf club for the first time and hitting a ball 100 yards down the fairway without ever practicing.
Neither of our presidential candidates can do that. We know that now. Go ahead.
No, one of them's got a 6 handicap, I think.
Yeah,
I've only got 1. Go ahead.
I'd like that. But I will say it was probably when he was 14 or 15. Terry Dunbar, who works with him, is a goalie coach. And he's worked with a lot of great people. Derek Peterson up on the Iron Range. Brant Nicklin's worked with him. There's been some other guys along the way that have helped him out. But Terry was kind of the first one that said, okay, if you want to play at the next level, there's some things you need to change. And for about the next 6 months, he was probably the worst goalie that I've seen, worst version of him as a goalie that I've seen. But that's because he was changing,
right?
Changing everything he was doing.
Yep.
He went from being, Terry said, we're going to take you from being just an athletic kid that flops around the net and turning you into a goalie that could play at the next level. And most 14, 15-year-old kids aren't going to, when they start to struggle, they're immediately going to go back to what they were having success with before. Yep. And you have people telling, oh, you're great, and all of a sudden you're not playing nearly the level you were at before. And a lot of kids would say, no, I'm going back. And I give AJ credit. He didn't stop doing what Terry asked him to do. He didn't stop working at it. And then just the discipline that he put in, that I've seen lots of talented, athletic people not willing to make that kind of commitment. And that's when I started to realize, okay, there's potential for him to do some big things. Now, even then, I didn't think, there's an opportunity for him to be in this situation. I didn't think that until his name popped up on the, NHL prospects list.
Right.
3 months ago.
So, Dave, the one thing that I want to tip my hat to AJ about is, currently there's this push to go play someplace else. That the sunshine is always brighter at another facility, at another team, at another school, at another league, whatever it might be. And the fact that AJ still has a shot at being drafted, coming out of Proctor and not playing for the Fargo Force all year long, or pick your poison, Shattuck or whatever. Sure. How much pressure was there? And two, how proud are you of your kid for not doing that?
There's always pressure is the right word, but there's always people saying, even when he's a little kid, people in the community telling him, you can't play, you're too good to play at Proctor, you can't play there and have success. And, that's him. I never told him you have to stay here. That's all on him. That's him saying, I want to stay here. I want to play with my friends. Obviously he was disappointed. One of his goals was they wanted to knock off the team that's, our neighbor and go to the state tournament.
Right.
That didn't happen, but that was one of
They
those.
wanted to give the Hawks the Hawk tour.
Yeah. That was one of the dreams that, and that's why one of the reasons why he stayed. And it's not just because they're Hermantown. He's got a lot of buddies on that team.
Right.
I mean, side note, congratulations to Max Plant. I don't know if you guys saw, but he was picked 45th by the Detroit Red Wings.
More breaking news on Northland Sports Page. We've got multiple picks during the show today.
Yeah, so that was, excited for him. And he and AJ have been friends and teammates for a long time. And, so it was, obviously, there's a number of those guys that he had played with growing up that he would love to have, just because I always say you like beating your enemies, but you love beating your friends.
Yep.
You know 100%. What I mean? So, so I think that's a big part of it, and it's really him. He wanted to stay and play with his buddies. He also wanted to prove to everyone, hey, you can stay here. You can be loyal to your community, even if it's not even if it isn't the top hockey community in the area, and get the things you want. And I'll say this. I think there isn't a better place to play right now. The access they have to ice, the access they have to training, the high school summer program. They've got guys, junior coaches coming in, college coaches coming in, junior scouts coming in to work with the high school kids. It's putting them in front of a lot of people, and they're getting obviously Coach Lasby does a great job, but it's putting them in front of guys that are doing it at a higher level and are sharing that knowledge with the boys. So I'm biased obviously because I'm wearing my Proctor stuff,
right.
but I don't think there's a better place right now to develop and grow as a hockey player.
I would say as a broadcaster, it's our favorite place to go to call games as well. Talking with Dave Reyelts, basically the chief of all things sports when it comes to Proctor, but there's so many hats I could put on you, and yes, you're literally wearing a Proctor hat right now. But I want to talk about where I probably knew you first, as a coach at least. Where I knew you first to be a slow pitch player at Wheeler or the Buffalo House. But
yes, sir.
Where I knew you first as a coach is CSS Soccer. I don't want to wish summer away, but that's coming up. How are you balancing all of this?
Yeah, it's obviously just plugging away there. We finished up our recruiting class for next year. I'm really excited.
I was going to say, we're going to talk about that, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do it in about 2 minutes. There's a 2-minute warning. Go ahead.
Number of local players we're really excited about coming in this fall, and obviously, and then we've been pretty young the last couple of years, and I feel like now we're seasoned and we're ready to make a big jump. Obviously, a huge jump when we switched from the Upper Midwest Athletic Conference to the Minnesota Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, the MIAC's one of the best conferences in the country in multiple sports, not just women's soccer, but we're strong in women's soccer, and it's been a slow start for us compared to what we're used to, the success we're used to having. But I'm really excited about what this group's going to be able to do, and now we're just starting to plug away at the 2025 class, and I'll sleep when I'm dead, so I use all, wee hours of what, it's a great thing about having a handheld device that has email and text on it, and, also your computer can get going on stuff all the time. But yeah, no, it's going really well. I'm really excited about what we're going to look like this fall, for sure.
Nothing wrong with that, putting a good roster together. I want to round it out by talk to me about the roster of Reyelts, because it's not just AJ. Kennan's been everywhere. Tell us about the other boys as well. It's a busy, busy family.
Sure. Well, Scotty right now is working his butt off umpiring.
Yeah.
The Proctor Baseball Classic.
As you were too, which is why we called the audible here.
Yep. Yeah. So he's at Klein Park right now. He's been there since 6:30, and he'll be there till probably 9 o'clock tonight umpiring. So he's doing that. Had a good track season. Kennan, who you mentioned, is Kennan's he got drafted by the Aberdeen Wings,
right?
In the North American League last year. He played in New Mexico. Started out with their NA3 team, got called up, missed 10 weeks unfortunately with a broken ankle, and then finished the year with their NA3 team. But he's really excited about the opportunity in Aberdeen. He's had a great conversation with their coaches after he got drafted. They're excited about his, being a 20-year-old, being an older player, leadership, and the ability he brings to if he needs to rough guys up, he can rough guys up and kind of be the sheriff on the ice and a leader in the locker room. So obviously he's still got to go to their camp and nothing's for certain, but he's pretty excited about the opportunity. So
I was getting worried there. You put Dave Cook with one of his best friends and the clock goes out the window. He was ready to feed you about 3-4 more questions. I just gave him the universal signal for a break. We got to get to one. Dave Reyelts, we appreciate you. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. That is Dave Reyelts, Mr. Everything in Sports, especially for the community of Proctor. But our 92 Duluth Central relay continues. Don Ness will close the show when we come back. Northland Sports Page live at Hoops Brewing for Hoopla. Stick around. We will be right back. Back here on the Northland Sports Page, Brian Prudhomme, Dave Cook, and Don Ness. As Dave Cook and Don Ness exchange pleasantries.
I've been in my own little world. Don was saying hi to everybody.
You could have ended the sentence right there for as long as I've known you. But our own little world is the Northland Sports Page. We're live at Hoops Brewing for Hoopla today. And again, we are able to do this every Saturday, the Northland Sports Page. We are not able to do anything without our great sponsors, Mr. Dave Cook.
Absolutely. Let's start with Advantage Emblem and Screen Printing, Kraus Heating and Cooling, Assisted Living Locators, www.assistedlivinglocators.com/Duluth, Arola Architecture Studio, Mike Regan at Christensen Group Insurance, the Blackwoods Group, including their locations, Tavern on the Hill, Blackwater right downtown, on London Road, in Proctor and in Two Harbors, Mount Royal Bottle Shop, Stewart's Bike Sports and Trophies, Comfort Systems of Duluth, Kohler Toyota and Kohler Hyundai, and Hoops Brewing.
So again, very thankful for all of our sponsors, very thankful for sports in Duluth.
Yeah.
We feel like our next guest, Mr. Don Ness, is a pretty good source on those. Don, good morning. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Helps if I turn your microphone on.
Okay, there you go.
I'm so happy to have you. I was speechless, so I rendered you the same way. So now that we've got you in the mix, quite literally, I want to talk to you about, and I prefaced this a little bit in the first hour. I don't know if you were here yet. I want to talk to you a little bit about Duluth as a sports town.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I feel like it's a good one. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing a sports talk show in Duluth. But teams not affiliated with schools have struggled here.
Right.
The Dukes left. The Huskies aren't drawing like they once were. The Clydesdales had their struggles. We've had indoor football pre-Harbor Monsters. The Lumberjacks don't blink. They were gone.
Yeah.
The Harbor Monsters are hoping to turn that corner. The crowds have been great. How difficult is it? I mean, obviously as a former mayor, you've been a high-ranking city official. How difficult is it to make these things go? And I know in the current state of things you have less to do with it, but how can the city be better to have this time around be different?
That's a great question. It's sports. There are a lot of sports fans in Duluth. Having UMD as kind of the focal point for a lot of the activity, and such a strong high school sports scene, and folks kind of focus their energies there. And you're competing with so many other activities, especially in the summertime in Duluth. There's great arts, and people are outdoors focused, and you have these beautiful days, and so it's difficult to compete with that. But
right.
Especially with semi-pro sports, I think there's a stronger connection to the community, and there can be a pride in like, hey, we're showing up, we're participating. The success of the team is going to be based on, in large part, when residents show up.
I think you're right. I think that is the big debate. We're talking to Don Ness as part of the Drawing Line segment, courtesy of Arola Architecture Studio. Unfortunately, Dave, we've only got about 7 minutes left in this segment already. Take it into Dave Reyelts, taking up too much of the relay again. You guys can hash it out like it's 1992. But at the same time, I think you hit kind of the both sides of the pendulum, if you will, both sides of the spectrum, if you want to play it that way. Weather's a big factor with everything we do here. If it's nice out, we want to enjoy it. So you're not going to be sitting watching somebody else do something. If it's not nice out, the Harbor Monsters will be okay because it's an indoor game, but, teams like the Huskies will struggle. So we've always asked this, Dave Cook, if you're not showing up when it's nice out and you're not showing up when it's not nice out, how do you win?
Yeah. Well, I think that I think back to kind of my experience, and the Lumberjacks were a great example. When the Dukes were there. There's certain teams that kind of capture the attention and the spirit of the community, and folks show up. And when folks show up, then it's a fantastic time,
right?
And it's family friendly and it's exciting, and the crowds are into it, and so there's kind of that tipping point of, do enough folks show up so that it feels like a party, that it feels like an event, like you feel a sense of pride of like, hey, our community is showing up and supporting these athletes and what they're doing. And so I think that is absolutely possible. And there's a lot of sports fans, and we just have to make sure that people see like the success of the Harbor Monsters is a success for our community.
I think it is as well. And you've been to multiple games for the Harbor Monsters. We've talked about them afterwards. Obviously, your son James is involved with the team, and I believe he's filming this segment. So I always say radio is not a visual medium, but this may be the exception. I've got a face for radio, and everybody can tell right now, but the Harbor Monsters, that's a perfect description. It is a party, and sports fans can really have a good time. The atmosphere's just felt different in those games. It's been loud, it's been ruckus, it's been very diverse. People have just enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's a great atmosphere, and I do want to shout out my son James, who is a huge Harbor Monsters fan, and we're season ticket holders. We're out there supporting them as much as we can, and it's a fun environment, and the action is so close to where the stands are. You can kind of see each hit and each great play is up right up front and close, and so we hope that this is going to grow into a must-see event. And so the community shows up, they bring their energy, and the more folks that show up, the more fun it's going to be.
I think that's exactly it. We're talking with former Duluth Mayor Don Ness about the success, or in some cases lack thereof, of semi-pro sports in Duluth, and how we can turn that proverbial corner and make the Harbor Monsters stick and help the Huskies recover and get back to drawing at Wade like they once were. How important is the community immersion piece? Because Greg Grell's sitting right to my right, and he's going to say, Brian brings this up 52 times during a Harbor Monster Weekend kickoff show, so I'll do it again here early. What's impressed me most about the Harbor Monsters is they're very new, very much in an infancy. There are people here who probably don't know anything about them, but they've made themselves visible even before they were playing games. They're doing community events. I feel like that was missing from some of those previous teams.
No question. That they're showing up at Juneteenth, that they're showing up at these meet and greets, and in the sense of community here at Hoops, and having the players show up after the games and just allowing fans to interact with these players and seeing, getting to know them. And as you get to know them, then you see them on the field, and you're cheering in a different way, because it's like these are folks that are, ingrained in our community. I got to meet them, at the Central Hillside Community Club, and that's what it's all about.
The competition part, because I think of these teams as everybody's a win for Duluth, but in some cases you're competing. Duluth FC can be home on a Saturday. The Harbor Monsters can be home on a Saturday. The Huskies can be home on a Saturday. For me as a Duluthian, I go, there's your trifecta. If you can make it to one or all of those, you win. But the respective organizations are going, so-and-so's home today too. That's difficult. We're not used to that. We're not like a pro sports team market where you go, the Wolves are playing across the street from Target Field. Who's going to draw what? How does Duluth balance something like that? Because maybe I'm too positive, but I just think of it as a giant W for the city.
No question. And more, events, and you're tapping into, different fan bases, and, there's football fans, and there's soccer fans, and there's baseball fans, and have all those options. We also bring 5 million visitors to our town. And so we got to make sure that we're promoting this as great family entertainment for our visitors. Yeah, you come in, you spend the day at the beach, and then you go to a Huskies game, or you go to a Harbor Monsters game at night.
Have you ever talked to the various organizations about, I think of back when you were in office and saying, okay, we're scheduled and this team is scheduled too. Have you ever been able to say anything like, well, if you guys can play at 1 and you guys can play at 7, everybody wins? Or is it the league basically shaping those schedules?
One of the most important skills for a politician is to get out of the way and not to interject where it's not your business. But, so no, that's not at that level. And, you're obviously hoping that they're spread out and that they're not competing. But, I think that's more of a league decision then.
I think that's well said. Speaking of getting out of the way, we've got about 97 seconds to go. Tell me what life is like for Don Ness now, because political spotlight is always on you, but you're basically Don Ness' busy dad right now.
That's absolutely right, and I'm loving that. And James is a huge sports fan, so we enjoy kind of going to as many games as we can and talking sports. And I'm really proud of him and his involvement and fandom for the Harbor Monsters.
Yeah.
We are proud of him as well and his fandom towards the Northland Sports page. He's texted me more than a time or two. He even called in on our NFL draft show.
He did.
James Ness knows his way around media circles, and he's a big help to the Harbor Monsters as well. Speaking of the Harbor Monsters, that show is next, Monster Weekend Kickoff. This has been the Northland Sports page. This particular segment was Drawing Lines, courtesy of Roll Architecture Studio. Don Ness, I was happy to have you. I hope we get to do this again.
That sounds great.
Thanks, Don.
Absolutely. So big thanks to Don Ness. Time to give big thanks to a lot of people today. Thank you to Kelly Gerges Wheeler. Thank you to Dave Reyelts. Thank you to Dave Hoops. Thank you again to Don Ness. Thank you to Dave Cook. In fact, I'll thank you so many times. I'd thank you even more if you stuck around. What do you say we do another hour?
Sure, we can do that. I think we should say thanks to Aaron for helping us bring our stuff.
Well, I was going to say, Dave Cook, you're basically LeBron James because the Northland Sports page is essentially the Los Angeles Lakers. We got your son to help us out in a big way.
Yeah, he brought all of our stuff here because between you and me, we wouldn't have been able to haul much.
We would still be in the parking lot at the radio station without question.
Yep.
But lots still to come on this radio station. We're going to recruit Greg Grell to help us out. It's time for Monster Weekend Kickoff. Get to know the owner. Brent Labrie is here. Tony O'Neill, the head coach, is here. And 2 Wenzels will be better than 1. We'll talk to both Terrence and Kayla. Part of Monster Weekend Kickoff. It all comes your way right after this break. This has been the Northland Sports page. Thank you very much for coming out to Hoops Brewing.